Now, I promised we'd talk about roles, and I don't want to get too bogged down in this. We will do a separate class on specifically building teams and role definitions and how you hire and interview and all those kind of things. That's a different class. But just a brief overview, let's talk about the 6 kinds of behavioral scientists. First of all, there's me. I'm the leader, right? In behavioral science, I tend to think of people as T-shaped. One area of deep expertise, broad horizontal interests, the legs and the arms. What I always tell my team is the legs keep you grounded, the arms help you fly, right? These are catalytic if you understand what other people are doing, but you need a deep expertise. As a leader, my deep expertise is really in the management of this process. It's getting people to do it. It's embedding it in an org. It's hiring and firing for the team. It's managing up, down, and sideways to my reports. All of these are the skills that I'm going to use on a daily basis. For our strategy phase, that's really going to be owned by a strategist. These are typically sort of MBA-like in stance. They, remember, because they're getting the ball from business, they have to understand the business model side really well. Often when I'm doing internal recruits, I'll actually look in the strategy department, look at the people who are owning those business things, and see who might be a natural pullover. They have to be folks that understand how we make money or create impact as an organization, and then want to integrate that into the behavioral science process. So that's a strategist. In insights, this is the only phase where we got 2 roles. We got quantitative researchers and qualitative researchers, right? What differs is their legs. Quantitative researchers are good at inferential statistics. This is sort of a branch of data science. It's not machine learning or AI or those sorts of things, right? This is about using things like ANOVAs, t-tests, et cetera, to be able to understand the relationship between behaviors in the world. And then qualitative researchers, right? These are folks who are able to use user research-like skills. They often are ex-journalists, for example, sociologists who can observe people and talk to people in their environment to understand, to get a better why around their behavior. So now we've got leaders, strategists, quants, quals. Now we need a designer. Now, when a lot of people think of a behavioral scientist, a designer is typically what they think of. This is the person who probably knows the most outside research. They know what's worked elsewhere. They understand the theory because they're going to jumpstart the design process with things that have worked elsewhere. They can help us mold ideas. They can bring in suggestions from theory. So, when we think about a behavioral scientist who really knows psychological literature, social psychology, that kind of stuff, maybe behavioral economics or judgment and decision making, they're really going to fit in that design. But that's not the end of their skill set. They have to be able to bring people together because they're facilitating these workshops. So they also have to understand the design thinking. How do you get disparate perspectives? How do you run a good sort of process around design? So I like to look at design agencies. Sometimes in the design department are people I like to recruit internally into this role. Often they have a BA at least in psych. Advanced degrees are awesome. And then finally, you get to the evaluation stage. And this is where the project manager really shines. So the project manager is the one who's going to run our pilot. And just like the strategist really understands the business part, the project manager probably understands the operational part. If I'm recruiting internally, I'm often pulling somebody from the operations team into my team to run that project management role. Because they have to know how to get a quick, dirty pilot done inside of the organization. They're the person who has that Rolodex, who can call up the janitor and see if they can do something in the front, like the front office to try something. They're the people who have all of those relationships in the community, in the organization, in the user space that you're working to be able to run that pilot. From an educational background and perspective, they have to at least understand experimentation. So usually some type of science background is helpful. It may not, be necessarily psychological science, although, social psychology is a great way to get this. But they need that experimentation coupled with a very practical mindset about how do I just get stuff done. So those are our 6 roles. We got leader, strategist, quant, qual, designer, and project manager. One of the things that makes for a really good, strong behavioral science team is coupled accountability and autonomy. You'll notice for each of those phases, everybody has a very clear sense of what they need to deliver. The behavioral statement is the responsibility, the accountability of the strategist. The pressure map is the accountability of the quantitative researcher and the qualitative researcher. The prospective designs, the sort of potential interventions, that is the accountability of the designer. And running a good pilot that gives me valid data is the accountability of the project manager. So each of those people has a deliverable that they own. Now, they may be getting advice from other people, and that's fantastic. We want support from other people. So for example, if you are the project manager and you're running a pilot, you likely need the quantitative and qualitative researchers to help you evaluate that pilot, to talk to the people that went through it, to understand what their experience was, to look at the data to tell you whether it was significant and impactful. You need their help, but it's your job to make sure it happens. If one of them had to go to the hospital, you're doing the data analysis yourself. You're figuring out how to get it done. You are the accountable party for each of those things. And that really tight coupling of accountability and autonomy is what makes this team click well. Everybody has a role. They have only one role, but working collectively, they can get it done.